There's more reaction to the story everyone's talking about. The CEO caught on kiss cam at a Coldplay concert, snuggling with his head of human resources. Today, there are serious questions whether they will be forced to leave their job.
A woman in the video resigning.
She didn't yell, she didn't post, she didn't even flinch. One kiss cam, 15 seconds, and a single smirk. That's all it took for Alyssa Stoddard, a junior HR nobody, to take down her boss, the woman who stole her promotion, and the CEO she secretly tracked for years. But here's what no one saw coming. This wasn't just revenge, it was planned. And by the time the footage went viral, it was already too late to stop her. Because the woman everyone ignored, she's now running the company. And the way she did it will change how you see every harmless office friendship forever. It was supposed to be a fun night, a sold-out Coldplay concert, stadium lights, 60,000 fans singing in unison, and in the middle of it all, two executives from one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the world, seated quietly in the VIP section. Andy Byron, the flashy CEO of Astronomer, and Kristin Cabot, his recently promoted head of HR. But then, the kiss cam panned to them, and everything changed. Andy flinched. Kristin froze. No kiss, no smile, just split-second panic. On the Jumbotron. What most people saw was an awkward moment between two people who weren't expecting to be on camera. What if you noticed, though, was the guilt written all over their faces. Andy looked away like he'd been caught. Kristin half laughed, then turned pale. It was weird, off, and instantly suspicious. But the real story? It wasn't just about them. Just barely off frame sat a woman the camera almost missed. Alyssa Stoddard, junior HR assistant. Practically invisible. Except she wasn't panicking, she wasn't flustered. She was smiling. Not a nervous smile, a knowing one. That smile would launch 1,000 Reddit threads. Because within hours, the footage had gone viral. But not because of the awkwardness, because of what it exposed. That moment on the Jumbotron didn't just reveal an affair. It kicked off a corporate implosion that would end 2 careers, destroy a marriage, and crown one unlikely woman as the most dangerous employee in Silicon Valley. And it all started with a smirk. Before the world knew her name, Alyssa Stoddard was just the quiet girl in the back of the office. Official title, junior HR assistant. Job description, handle onboarding packets, update vacation logs, and sit silently during meetings no one wanted to attend. She wasn't invited to strategy sessions. She wasn't copied onboard emails. In fact, most people didn't even know she was there. But here's the thing about being invisible. You see everything. Alyssa knew who was getting hired before the ink dried. She noticed which resumes skipped the interview process. She tracked expense reports, internal memos, and those vague calendar events labeled off-site leadership enrichment. And most importantly, she managed executive travel schedules, including Kristin Cabot's. 2 years before the concert, Alyssa had applied for the promotion that eventually went to Kristin. At the time, Kristin was a mid-level generalist with less experience, fewer credentials, and barely half the internal tenure Alyssa had. Yet somehow she leapfrogged the ladder into a leadership role Alyssa had quietly worked toward for 5 years. No explanation, no transparency, just a new title on the company Slack. Alyssa didn't argue. She didn't vent on social media. She started watching closely. She noticed Kristin's calendar suddenly syncing with CEO Andy Byron's. After-hours meetings, overlapping travel, reimbursements for fancy wine bars disguised as team events that had only 2 attendees. Kristin and Andy. Alyssa didn't just see it. She started documenting it, not out of spite, but because something felt wrong. But that isn't even the craziest part. Because she knew it wasn't just favoritism, it was a pattern. At first it looked like subtle favoritism, an extra meeting here, a skipped approval there. But the deeper Alyssa looked, the more blatant the pattern became. Kristin wasn't just being supported by the CEO, she was being shielded. Astronomer had a strict promotion process, 3 executive signatures, performance evaluations, and compliance clearance. But Kristin's leap to director, it skipped all of it. According to internal logs, her paperwork was pushed through with just 1 signature, Andy Byron's. Alyssa had seen enough HR cycles to know that wasn't just unusual, it was a breach. Then came the expenses. Kristin's travel budget had quietly ballooned over 6 months, far surpassing that of her peers. 5-star hotels, first-class flights, dinners logged as executive development with receipts showing only 2 diners. And worse, the locations didn't match company events. Boutique hotels, wineries, high-end restaurants with no scheduled offsites. Kristin, with no financial background, was now sitting in on vendor negotiations and internal audits. She was being CC'd on legal memos, attending meetings outside her scope, and somehow involved in budget decisions way above her pay grade. Alyssa didn't speculate. She tracked. One dinner receipt in particular turned her suspicions into certainty. A Michelin-starred wine bar labeled as Team Enrichment, but the only attendees? Kristin and Andy. 10 days later, Kristin's promotion was filed. This wasn't a case of being overqualified. It was access, proximity, and power. And Alyssa, still overlooked by everyone, now had a collection of receipts that told a story louder than any rumor ever could. But she wasn't ready to expose it, not yet, because she was waiting for the perfect moment. From the outside, it looked like a perfect storm. A random moment at a sold-out concert. 2 executives caught off guard. But what no one realized not the crowd, not the board, not even Kristin, was that Alyssa had orchestrated it all. It started weeks earlier. Kristin, casually bragging at a team lunch, mentioned the upcoming Coldplay show and her VIP seats. One slip of the tongue, one careless sentence. But to Alyssa, it was the final puzzle piece. She pulled up the venue map, cross-checked where the kiss cam typically hovered, and upgraded her own ticket. Same row, same section. Just a few seats away, close enough to be part of the moment, far enough to remain unnoticed, on purpose. Alyssa knew exactly what she was doing. She'd already seen the overlapping flights. She'd flagged Kristin's phony remote work entry for that weekend. She even traced the Airbnb invoice that didn't match her location status in the system. This wasn't about gathering proof anymore, it was about execution. When the kiss cam panned to Andy and Kristin, everything Alyssa had waited for snapped into place. The awkward flinch, the visible panic, the guilt on display, and just to the left of Alyssa's smile. Small, sharp, deliberate. That smirk wasn't shock, it was satisfaction. She didn't scream, she didn't post a tweet, she didn't even blink. Because the moment the Jumbotron lit up, Alyssa had already won. The video would go viral. People would ask questions, but none of them would know the truth, that this wasn't luck. It was a takedown disguised as coincidence. And while Kristin scrambled to save face, Andy tried to play it off. Alyssa quietly disappeared into the crowd. But she wasn't running. She was moving to the next step. The concert footage hit social media before midnight. By sunrise, it had millions of views. At first, it looked like just another awkward kiss cam clip, a funny, slightly cringy moment that gets a few laughs before vanishing into the algorithm. But this one didn't vanish. It detonated. Reddit threads exploded. TikToks broke it down frame by frame. Twitter sleuths zoomed in on every expression. Who were these two executives looking like they'd just been caught cheating in front of 60,000 people? And more importantly, who was the woman next to them, smiling like she knew? People asked why Kristin had listed herself as working remotely that weekend, why her calendar entry didn't match her flight, why Andy Byron, a married CEO, looked like someone had hit him with a spotlight of shame. It wasn't long before the dots started connecting. Inside Astronomer, panic spread faster than the video itself. Emails were wiped, expense reports reviewed. The PR team went into overdrive. A confidential meeting with the board was called behind closed doors. And in the middle of it all, Alyssa stayed silent. But her silence was the loudest sound in the building. Kristin was placed on immediate administrative leave. No farewell, no explanation. Andy tried to spin the situation, saying it was a misunderstood moment, taken out of context. But the board wasn't buying it. Not after seeing documentation contradicting Kristin's location, reimbursement forms, and travel overlaps. What began as a social media moment had turned into a full-blown internal investigation. And leading that investigation? The same woman no one ever noticed in the office hallways, Alyssa. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It was a war, and Alyssa had been preparing for it longer than anyone realized. For years, Alyssa had been the one taking notes during policy meetings. Now, she was writing the playbook. Just days after the kiss cam chaos, with Kristin placed on leave and Andy under fire, Astronomer's board made a quiet but seismic move. Alyssa was named Interim Director of People and Culture, the same title Kristin once held, the same role Alyssa had been denied. And now she wasn't just in the room, she was running it. Her first move? Launching a full audit of executive promotions, discretionary travel, and expense logs, starting with Kristin. She requested internal access, pulled archived receipts, reviewed calendar discrepancies, and flagged every policy violation that had been buried under executive privilege. Kristin, still reeling from the viral backlash, walked into what she thought would be a routine HR meeting, only to find Alyssa sitting across the table, flanked by legal counsel and a stack of evidence. She never saw it coming. Within 48 hours, Kristin was locked out of internal systems, her expense account frozen, her badge revoked. The same colleagues who once CC'd her on everything now avoided her name entirely. Meanwhile, Andy tried damage control, privately contacting board members to downplay the optics. But it wasn't about optics anymore, it was about documentation, and Alyssa had plenty. Behind the scenes, investors were furious, not because of a scandal, but because Kristin had falsified her travel status on company records. That wasn't just messy, it was a legal liability. Andy was given an ultimatum: resign quietly or face an official misconduct inquiry. He chose to walk. But as he packed up, stripped of titles and credibility, Alyssa didn't celebrate. She got back to work. Alyssa didn't post a selfie, she didn't gloat, she didn't even speak to the press. She just started cleaning the house. As interim director, Alyssa took everything she had learned from years in the background. Every shady reimbursement, every skipped approval, every hushed executive exception, and began rebuilding the system from the inside. Quietly, thoroughly, relentlessly. No theatrics, just policy. She led audits on every leadership promotion granted over the last 3 years, cross-checked travel logs with internal calendar entries, flagged reimbursements with vague project labels like team enrichment, or strategy alignment that had been used to disguise luxury getaways and private dinners. And she didn't stop there. She restructured astronomers' HR protocols to prevent single approval promotions, introduced anonymous whistleblower channels, required dual authentication for all travel documentation. What had once been a playground of unchecked power became a maze of accountability. Internally, employees whispered her name, but not in fear, in respect. Alyssa, the woman they used to ignore in meetings, was now asking the questions no one else dared. Executives stopped using Slack for side deals. Expense accounts tightened overnight, and every leadership retreat suddenly required full documentation and board approval. Some say she was vindictive, others say she was strategic, but no one questioned the results. Kristin vanished without a word. Her house emptied overnight. Her husband filed for divorce the same week, citing irreconcilable differences. Andy's name disappeared from Astronomer's leadership page. His LinkedIn went dark. Speaking engagements were canceled. He was quietly removed from advisory boards across the industry. But Alyssa, she stayed silent because she knew the most powerful move she ever made wasn't revenge, it was ordered. In the weeks that followed, the world moved on from the kiss cam moment. The memes faded. The reposts slowed. But inside Astronomer, nothing went back to normal. Because Alyssa Stoddard had changed the rules. She didn't take down her enemies with a press conference. She didn't write a tell-all post. She never even claimed credit. She just acted, quietly, intelligently, and with the kind of precision no one expected from someone once dismissed as background noise. Kristin Cabot disappeared entirely. Her Instagram wiped. Her office cleared. Her reputation dissolved overnight. Her husband filed for divorce. Her promotion was rescinded. Her future, uncertain. Andy Byron tried to survive the fallout, but you can't outspin footage that caught you in real time. He was forced out of the company he helped build, blacklisted across the tech world, and buried beneath NDAs and severance negotiations. Some say he still doesn't believe Alyssa was behind it. That's the part that stings most. He never saw her coming. But maybe that's the point, because Alyssa didn't win by screaming louder or striking first. She won by waiting, by listening, by watching people dig their own graves, one unethical decision at a time. And when the moment came, she didn't need to shout. She smiled. That 15-second video exposed more than an affair. It exposed a system built on silence, secrecy, and unchecked power. And it took one woman's patience, one woman's stillness to make it collapse. Now Alyssa leads the very team that once overlooked her, not with revenge, with credibility. And every time a promotion is processed, a receipt filed, or a flight logged, people triple check, because somewhere in that system, Alyssa is watching, and she doesn't miss a thing.